Welcome to our interactive lecture on fashion merchandising. Much of this lecture is drawn from our textbook, but a certain amount has been created for this class by me. I highly recommend reading this chapter prior to completing this video. You will need to have your visual organizer for this online lecture ready to fill out as you progress through this video. These are the key concepts you should take away from this and from Chapter 6 in our textbook. You will be able to stop and start this video in order to review ideas and fill in any blanks on your visual organizer. There will be several questions put to you during the video that you will be answering and then uploading to D2L. After completing this video, you should be able to do the following. Define the term fashion and describe how it affects our lives. Identify what trends are, how they begin, and how they play out over time. Distinguish between fads, classics, and basics. Describe who initiates trends, and detail how retailers use the trend curve to plan and forecast sales and inventories. Our textbook offers a simple definition of fashion as a form of expression widely accepted by a group of people over time. These groups of people coincide with the demographic and psychographic characteristics we discussed in our first classes. This means that a trend tends to affect specific groups of people at different times and in different ways. The picture on this slide gives an example of how the brand Tommy Hilfiger, once the darling of the hip-hop set, alienated its customer base by adding a line of women's or plus-size clothing. Start thinking of trends you are seeing right now in clothing, food, lifestyle, or any other part of our lives. Your assignment will be to choose a current trend and describe it. We'll be discussing these in class together as well. Fashion is by no means a new phenomenon in our history as human beings, as this quote from Shakespeare in the 16th century illustrates. Fashion is driven by trends, and these trends exist in every part of our lives. There are trends in clothing, hairstyle, home furnishings, lifestyle choices, language. Anything human beings do is subject to them. Some of you are probably familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's books. Gladwell is a journalist who brings together research in science, sociology, and psychology to add insight into our understanding of human behavior. As marketers, the more we understand about what motivates people, the better we can make decisions that are good for our business. The Tipping Point is a book about how little things make a big difference. The little things referred to in the subtitle are the germs that give rise to trends, and the book goes on to explain how those trends spread virally across society. We're surrounded by trends. Here are a couple of trends our textbook identifies. One is the idea that we like to surround ourselves in beautiful, cozy comfort at home, cocooning. This has had an impact on furniture stores, home improvement stores, television shows, websites, and many other parts of our lives. Another, which seems to be permanent, is the trend for the casual workplace. At one time, the corporate dress code involved suits and ties for men and suits and hosiery for women. Some workplaces have become so casual that employees could wash their cars in the clothes they wear to work. In the retail industry, business casual has its own dress code. You'll need to look dressed up even though it's not in a suit anymore. In many ways, this is more difficult to pull off than when there was a strict dress-up code. What do you wear when the dress code is business casual? This is a question you will answer in order to complete this assignment. This slide illustrates the life cycle of a trend over time. Trends start when innovators or trendsetters or fashion leaders start a trend. In The Tipping Point, Gladwell uses the example of hush puppies, which had become fashionable to a small group of hipsters in New York. Manhattan-based designers noticed this trend and started using hush puppies in various fashion shoots. This publicity propelled the sales from 30,000 pairs in 1994 to over 430,000 pairs in 1995. During the growth phase, early adopters take up the trend and the growth curve is very steep. This is the stage that merchants want to be participating in. Sales come easily, and there's usually more problems staying in stock than in having too much. Discerning the peak of a trend is a very tricky proposition. If you get out or hold back prematurely, you'll lose profitable sales. But if you hang on too long, you will get overstocked and incur markdowns. There will be more and more competitors vying for the business, and you run the risk of costly markdowns and the ability to capitalize on new trends. This slide uses an animal print shoe as an example of a trend. Animal prints cycle in and out of popularity on a continuous basis, and they never really die back completely. This stiletto pump eventually got knocked off, and when that happens, the innovators or fashion leaders lose interest and the trend peters out. Fads are trends that have a very, very short cycle. They make a splash and then die out very quickly. The pet rock lives on as an example of this, I think probably because it was really so silly. Classics, on the other hand, start as trends, and because they provide a solution to consumers' long-term needs, they persist over time and really never go out of style. For women, the little black dress, black blazers, skirts, pants, and pumps provide the building blocks of our wardrobes. Details change over time, but the core concept stays the same. What are the classics in your wardrobe? Remember that you need to identify a current trend, evaluate it, and be ready to discuss it in our next class. Here are some I've come up with a little help from my friends. What current trend have you identified? This is a good time to stop this video and write down your ideas. Feel free to use any of the ones listed here if they're really your best idea. Merchandise can be categorized as basic or fashion. This is not an either-or condition, but really it's a continuum. Some basic goods are quite fashionable, and some fashions are quite basic. The distinction between basics and fashion is extremely important in merchandise management. Staple or basic merchandise is something that customers expect to find in stock at a retailer when they want to buy it. It's been around for a length of time, so the merchants have a history of sales that allows them fairly accurate predictions. It's possible that colors and even silhouettes might change, but the overall sales trend is something that can be used to make specific and actionable plans. Fashion merchandise, on the other hand, has a limited sales history, and the sales are difficult to forecast. Junior dresses are a good example of this sort of merchandise. Junior apparel buyers go to market every 6 weeks or less. They might have an idea of how many dresses they could sell in a season, but this can change dramatically in a few weeks. They need to be able to react quickly to any trend that arises and move open-to-buy dollars from a downtrending category to the uptrending one. There's a section of your visual organizer for you to fill in the characteristics of staples/basics, classics, fashion trends, and fads in relation to how a merchant is able to control inventory and maximize sales. There's a very interesting section in our textbook describing the process by which fads and fashion transform themselves into basic. The evolution of activewear timeline on page 130 is especially interesting. Both the examples on this slide are good illustrations of how fashion infuses itself into a product category. We all wear tennis shoes or sneakers to do more than participate in a sport, don't we? I do take issue with the books crediting Victoria's Secret with transforming lingerie into a fashion business. The author obviously hadn't visited a lingerie department in a department store prior to encountering Victoria's Secret in a mall. You only have to look at movies from the 1930s to see that elegant and sexy lingerie was available then, and I'm sure was available for a long time before that. I think a more valid observation about lingerie is that it's become acceptable as outerwear. Women wear camisoles as tops, and bra straps that show are no longer a fashion no-no. Fashion trends can come from anywhere: the internet, social media, TV, movies, music, travel, athletic events, museums, books, churches, conventions, the workplace. Anywhere people interact with one another can produce a fashion trend if the circumstances are right. Our challenge as merchants is to use all this input to help us predict what's trending, when to buy it, when to buy a lot of it, and most importantly, when to stop buying it. There are numerous resources available to help merchants pick up on trends they might miss otherwise. They're able to look at sales from previous season. They're always on the lookout for ideas when they're shopping, surfing the web, out hiking or walking, or any other activity. They often take time from work to go out and visit stores and see what's happening there. There are professional and fashion and trend services to consult. Their vendors are a huge help in steering them in the right direction. And there's a lot of traditional market research available to help them identify trends. This is a list of some different resources available with a subscription that will help buyers track emerging trends. Each of them has a team of professionals shopping all over the country and all over the world to pick up on what's new and different. Stop the video now and visit one of these on the web. Report on what you see there and how you think the resource might be used. Many of you are probably already familiar with Polyvore and Instagram. If not, be sure to take the time to find out what they are. How do you think a fashion buyer might use one or the other to research trends? There are also professional color services which create color forecasts used by designers in all industries. Pantone is the best known of these. Pantone creates color palettes for printing, paint, textiles, and plastics. Each medium requires a different sort of color, and each industry will have related but different palettes. Pantone forecasts color out several years, which helps immensely in product development. You should have your visual organizer filled out now. Review your grasp of the objectives here and make sure to bring any questions you might have to class.